Hello, everybody. Welcome to the YGHub, and I'm your beloved host for this evening. And I'm editing a video for you after today. We're going to be reacting to a video that I recently watched by the Emperor John Kill 3D, who was talking about why modern Yugioh sucks and will get better. I also watched about halfway through his second video, which you can see on the right, which is why modern Yugioh sucks part 2. And I was like, you know what, I want to really talk about this because of the fact that Yugioh is such a wide and diverse game and people always have quarrels. Now, I actually made a video on this already, but it was kind of lengthy, really kind of long, and I wanted to see if I can cut it out through just less talking. I guess less talking, but I can get to one of the points because I was kind of dragging on a little too long in the video, and I was too happy about that. So, let's go and get started with this. If you want to see more of this, if you want to see me kind of react to part 2, I think this is a part 3 as well, which I don't think I've seen I have not yet seen part 3. Feel free to say in the comment section below. So let's go and get started. And also, real quick, before I do get started, Mr. Emperor John Kill 3D, there is no hate towards you whatsoever. This is just a little commentary about your video in terms of why Modern Yugioh sucks. And yeah, because Modern Yugioh can be quite fun. And it's not for everybody. Not for everybody. So, let's go ahead and get started.
What's up, everybody? Emperor John Kill 3D Gaming here, and I only make this video because I grew up and loved this series, this card game, everything about it I fell in love with. So, this video is an act of harsh love. What do you mean by that? Well, I'm going to boldly say it. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. Okay? And some of you are saying, heresy, how can this be? John, how dare you? Blah, 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 blah. No, for a fact, Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Sucks. And let me tell you why. The power creep, the amount of unrealistic strategies that are now developed, and the over-complexity of a once simple game. Let me explain. Why is a card game like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon able to innovate their card game without having to destroy what made their series and card game great to begin with?
Alright, let's talk about that real quick. Okay, so a lot to unpack here. Basically him talking about, asking like why Magic the Gathering and Pokemon can keep the fundamentals of the games without sort of power creep, even though the games do have power creep. Regardless of how they function, which is to do set rotations every 3 or 4 months, the previous sets kind of go out and then new sets bring in, and the cards from the previous sets can no longer be used. That's kind of how they keep things a little fresh and new, but there is still technically power creep in these games. Also, he talks about how a simple game like Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be so complicated, where Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always sort of been complicated. It's never really been simple. It's been a little, okay, compared to now, it was simpler back then, when a lot of strategies were just kind of summon legends, set 1. There wasn't a lot of heavy combo decks like there are now. But Yu-Gi-Oh! has always been complicated to an extent in terms of the different phases, because you have like your draw phase, demo phase, main phase, battle phase, damage step, damage calc, like the 8 different things that happen in the damage step. Like, there's so many things in the game that it was always been complicated, even back in the day. It never was simple. It just feels simpler now because of what we can do today and the modern era of Yu-Gi-Oh! And the crazy combos that we can perform with our current Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. But Yu-Gi-Oh's never been simple. And, him saying modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Sucks, yeah, I can agree to an extent, because sometimes it does get overwhelming and annoying at times when things do happen.
Everything past original Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! GX fucking blows. Yes, 5Ds blows. Zexal blows. These fucking Pendulum and Link things blow. And don't get me wrong, there is some good ideas, but very rarely do these ideas work. I've played a couple of Link cards, and I played a couple of these XYZ cards. Only some of them actually fit very well with playing with the GOAT format, because here's the problem with Yu-Gi-Oh! they never truly gave the original the support that it needed to be able to compete nowadays. Because in Magic the Gathering and in Pokemon, you could play with cards from fucking Genki cards from the GOAT formats of those and actually be able to compete with somebody.
Alright, I had to... Okay, so... He's wrong in that instance. He's correct but wrong at the same time, just how Magic the Gathering works. At least in terms of Magic the Gathering. I'm not too sure on Pokemon. I do believe Pokemon has alternate formats where you can use older sets and stuff in terms of out of the tournaments. Because Magic the Gathering does have alternate formats where you can use older cards, as well as you can use older cards with current cards, or what is in the current set. But if you're going for a base, I think it's what standard is what determines Magic. If I get it wrong, feel free to correct me. 100% up for criticism and stuff like that if I get it wrong. Just want to put that out there. But Magic, if you go to a normal, I guess it was supposed to be a standard tournament, where you can only use cards from whatever set rotation you're in, you can't use cards like fucking Black Lotus, which is like from one of the first cards printed ever in Magic the Gathering, and a modern tournament. Like, you can't. Because those cards are no longer a part, they're not in that specific set, the rotation of the sets. So he's wrong in that instance. Yu-Gi-Oh! You can use older cards that if they're not on the ban list, if they're not banned, you can. You can't walk up to a tournament and just start playing. Yeah, I figure my pot agrees to draw 2 cards from my deck, but you can use older strategies. You can always still use older decks. You can go to arenas right now, or go to locals and play a GOAT deck. Oh, technically a GOAT deck, kind of, yeah, yes and no maybe. But you can use older cards, like Bomb Trapple, Mirror Force, and you can use those cards. And things like that, no one's prepared for, so you can kind of surprise them. But, you're very wrong on the Magic the Gathering part, in terms of the ability to use older cards with modern cards. Like, that doesn't really work that way. And I'm sorry that Konami has not, I guess, grew the game from old-style Yu-Gi-Oh! To fit your personal needs, just because of the fact that, the game needs to evolve. Had to improve. Had to change. And that's the nature of any type of competitive game. You need to change, keep things interesting for people to stay, and if people want to get into and play. And if you're new to Yu-Gi-Oh!, good luck learning this game.
Yu-Gi-Oh's got to the point where it's like, what if somebody took a break for 10 to 20 years and they want to come back and they play with the GOAT format, which is the superior and best format of the game? What kind of game locks you from playing more than Yu-Gi-Oh? The modern strategies and the modern archetypes, that's what ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the archetypes. The creativity was stripped away. Because back then in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, even though GX brought in archetypes, those archetypes could still be competed with the OG format. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Could, the moment the duel starts, you as a normal player lay one card, do a simple strategy, lay a card face down or attack position, lay down maybe a trap or a spell. Then the player that you're fighting can easily take a 15 to 20 minute turn, damn near summoning 5 to 6 cards on the field, and could end the duel within 2 turns and lock you out of your own deck from playing. What kind of shitty format is that? To basically prevent your opponent from being able to Yu-Gi-Oh! The thing.
Alright, so I like the fact that he is something about preventing your opponent from playing. You're preventing your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is kind of the hope of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is to prevent your opponent from playing so you can get the win. But I like the fact he's complaining while he's playing Great Keepers, which is known to play Echo Valley, which is a very known and very powerful floodgate that shuts down a lot of modern decks because of how many decks nowadays use the graveyard as a secondary deck. So, yeah, quite funny. And he talks about players when they take a break, from GOAT format. They have places that GOAT format like that. They come back 10, 20 years later. Let's say they come back now in year 2024 and they just try to use their same strategies. And yeah, people will do that because it's what they know from back then. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I'd do the same thing if I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh back then. Game now, I would be trying to use my old cards. But yeah, it would be a culture shock, and it'd be crazy for anyone to think that the game has stayed the same for all these years. But there are plenty of people who came back to the game from, say, Gold format, and are still playing the game. Heck, they're playing freaking Cashier or Snake Eyes now if they are willing to compete the game. It's crazy, you know? It's nuts. It's like people are still going to play the game regardless. But yeah, like, people come back all the time. And they still enjoy the game. Also, Go format is not the best format. That falls under Edison. I am sorry. Go format is fun, but Edison format is a nice in-between mixture of sort of the fast pace of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And the slower pace of, say, the GOAT format. Combination of both, best of both worlds. Edison format, best format. Sorry, GOAT lovers.
The thing that made Yu-Gi-Oh! Great was the tension and not being able to anticipate.
Also, I did forget to mention, I just remembered, he mentioned about archetypes killing the creativity of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is not the case. There really has not been a lot of creativity in Yu-Gi-Oh!, and let me explain this. Because if you go back in the day, decks pretty much had, if you were really into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know, tournament, regionals, SJCs back in the day, when they're called Stone Jump Championships, not the YCSs as they're called now, everybody's deck had 20 cards that everybody played. Like Pot of Greed, Crystal Charity, Full Century, Drunken Duel, just kind of name a few. You had 20 cards that everybody played. Then you had the rest of the 20 cards are kind of what you wanted to play. So there wasn't a creativity, but not at the same time. The deck still looked the same. And also, archetypes didn't really kill the creativity because we kind of always had archetypes even before GX. If I remember correctly, Gravekeepers came out before GX. We had Gravekeepers before GX. It was like we had Blue Eyes and our Christian were sort of archetypes in a sense because we had support for them. Like we had Dark Magician Girl and Thousand Knives and Dark Magic Attack, and you know Blue Eyes had Burst Stream of Destruction. You know it had Kaiba Man Adventure. Like they were already sort of archetypes in their own right. So no, it wasn't the archetypes. It was just we eventually got better stuff and. Archetypes became more fluent and they became more central focus of the game because they make it easier for Konami to print cards as well as make it easier for us players to kind of build decks. And it's easier to kind of control the rarities of some of these cards. But yeah, the game is not creative back in the day. I'm sorry. There was no creativity back in the day either. Now, if you play Squadron Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's your creativity. Score Yu-Gi-Oh! On a sale.
Anticipate what your opponent's going to do. Now in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! You can anticipate everything your opponent's going to do by the type of archetype they use. You can anticipate your opponent's going to be like, okay, I'm going to lay this card down, 7 pendulums in one go, access my whole deck.
37 pendulums, man, that's crazy.
Turns. What happened to the tension? What happened to...
There's still tension.
Like, okay, what's my opponent going to do? Or
there's still that.
Players like, yo, what is my opponent going to do?
There's still that.
Using different spells and traps, different monsters, in synchronization. No pun intended, because I think
there's still decks like that.
Fucking stupid and so.
Using different monsters and different spell traps and containing that actually work together, those still exist. Some of the top decks did that. Perfect example is Synchrocentric. Way back in the day, where they used like the plant engine, which was like Moonfire, Dandelion, Spore, and Global, with things like Synchron, like Quick Draw Synchron, Level Eater, just to name those few cards. And the goal was to kind of go Quasar. You can use for a Warrior. You know, that was a very popular deck. Another one was Hat, which was ironically it's the meta strategy that became meta, where you use the hands, artifacts, and trap tricks all together in tandem as a great stun deck. Most recently, you had Dragon Link, which is literally a combination of very strong dragons like Rockets and Bestial, some Red Eyes cards, like some of the Chaos cards like Collapse Serpent and White Buster. You can also combine it with some Blue Eyes text like some Air Legends, Ancients, Blue Eyes. You know, Dragon Link is a very, very, powerful deck. And another recent one is, Horus Bestial Resonator, which is the Horus cards, and then with Bestials and some of the Resonator cards. They work very well together. So there are still decks that are mismatches of, I wouldn't say random cards, but cards that people have found work very well together that aren't just all into one archetype. So, so you're wrong in that sense, and that's not true. Now, majority of the decks, yes, are archetype-based and are mainly a single archetype, but you still get decks like Dragon Link and like the Horus stuff that can work in different stuff. There's even in OCG in Japan, Fiend Link, which uses the Yugioh support, some Unchained, with some Sorceress, and the Fiend Sith stuff. Even combine that with some of the Evil Eye stuff. Like, there's all kinds of crazy, wacky stuff that people come up with overseas and even over here in the West. You just gotta look for it, and sometimes it's not hard to find. You know, you have Warrior Pow decks. It's like, I can keep going on. There are different variations of people doing things with different random stuff. And it just doesn't seem like he really looked into that and see if what people are actually doing with some of the cards. Because there's innovation all the time in the game. It's not just, let me just play this archetype. Let me just play Tenpai Dragon. Let me just play Yubel. Let me just play, X deck number 501. It's not always the case.
Sucks with their broken monsters. The problem is the power creep in the game has broken the game.
Power creep is ridiculous, though. I ain't gonna lie.
I think the thing Yu-Gi-Oh always needed, you needed a cap. It needed a power cap. And the problem is Yu-Gi-Oh, Konami never gave it a power cap. Okay?
Yu-Gi-Oh did not need a power cap.
Made the worst decision letting power creep dominate their game.
It's kind of hard to prevent that in a game where
play, and I know a lot of people didn't play it. I was one of the very few, so I could speak on it. Played the actual Dungeon Dice, the board game with all the pieces. Yes, I had every
that was actually fun to play.
Thing that went to it.
I know, that was pretty fun.
Hell, I would play that with friends of mine. And
if you never played Dungeon Dice Monsters, find someone who has it, and you can probably get it for cheap. I don't know. I haven't looked at the prices for the game and stuff, but if you can get some friends to play, it's actually a lot of fun. It's a much different way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's just super fun to play. I personally enjoyed it. I played it as a kid with some of my friends, and we had a blast with it. And I kind of wish it went more with it, because that would have been pretty fun to play on the side with the actual physical card game. But alas, it just wasn't popular enough, and it didn't really last long. So maybe Konami could bring it back someday, and that'd be kind of fun. But yeah, find it, play it. You enjoy it.
At least in that format, it was fair. Playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't know whether you have a chance in hell or not to be able to even compete with your opponent.
He's not wrong.
Okay, because to be honest, my favorite deck type, yes, I don't call them archetypes, it's my deck of choice that I use, is Gravekeepers. I'm gonna start calling that
I'm gonna start calling that now. My deck types. This is my deck type. My deck type.
Simple, but yet they're very effective. Okay?
Yeah,
yes, my opponent can tell what I'm doing, but that depends if they have a deck that can either counter me or they could work their way through.
AKA, don't play a good Rubik's deck or have some way to give it a Necro Valley.
You don't know your opponent, and your opponent doesn't know you. But now, with all these archetypes...
Well, you technically don't know your opponent until you actually start playing your opponent. So, hell, I don't know my opponent's playing freaking Snake Eyes, so I see the cards going. That's the thing. I can just take a look and guess. Unless I'm in a YCS and they win a feature match, then I'll probably know what they're playing.
Types, you know the kind of mess you're going to get into. You know the kind of deck your opponent is going to use. And it's almost in your head. You're just
to an extent. To an extent, yes.
How long before this turns over? I'm probably going to have 2 turns. He's going to summon something outrageous.
Not wrong.
Stop me from being able to play the game.
Not wrong, to be honest.
Okay? And I doubt it's ever going to get any better. The thing Yu-Gi-Oh! If I was in charge of Capcom...
really wouldn't.
Or not Capcom, my bad.
It's not.
Konami. Konami, if I was in charge of them, I would literally have Yu-Gi-Oh! Divided into eras of play.
That sounds pretty fun.
And I would be like, look...
Now, having Yu-Gi-Oh! Divided into different eras, that actually sounds pretty fun as in a certain format. I wouldn't exactly think... That wouldn't work in the main state of the game. But as alternative formats, that would be pretty cool. Like you can only play cards from Dual Monster era. You can only use cards from the GX era or the 5Ds era. That would be pretty cool. That would be really, really sick, and I would 100% play that. I am not going to lie. Bro, if you are watching this, I'm going to watch this, and you want to do some duels like that, where we just play cards from the different eras, hit me up. I will play you with that, because that sounds pretty legit and fun, and that sounds like a really good time, especially like a really cool video idea. I ain't going to lie, dude. That would be pretty cool.
What we have now, we're going to cap all the cards we currently have. Because certain even spells and trap cards that should be able to destroy the monster, whether the monster says so or not.
Context
it's
is
like
key
monsters
here.
have too much protection now
He's
to
not
stop
wrong.
them from being destroyed. There's too many different ways to also axe your opponent's monsters before they even get the chance. See, me, I like to give my opponent a chance. That's how I was trained in the Art of Yu-Gi-Oh! By my
Train the Art of Yu-Gi-Oh!
They were like, we want to make the game fair. We want to give each other a chance to overtake one another. Not the moment the game starts, hey, let's have a friendly game, to where you have chosen death after your first turn.
Yeah.
Is that...
But the thing is, though, like, the goal of Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially in competitive, is to win. And everyone wants to try to win Yu-Gi-Oh! That's just the number one goal in Yu-Gi-Oh! Whether it is online, just playing on a local, regionals, YCS, things like that. Like, you want to win your game. So you don't really want to give your opponent the chance to come back and just make with a crackback and just destroy you and obliterate you like he just summoned freaking all 5 pieces of Exodia plus an Egyptian God card and just destroyed your face. You want to try to prevent your opponent from winning. And I understand where he's coming from, where you want that back and forth. You want to give your opponent the chance. That Jim is like, I will help you. I will allow you to attempt to break my board. And granted, again, this is in the context of casual old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Where, it didn't matter. If you're just playing at home or playing at school, not in a tournament, it doesn't really matter if you win or lose, because there's no pairings, there's no price, there's no reason to try to win. So yeah, allowing your opponent to get an extra turn to try to claim victory over you is not that bad. And sometimes it can be very interesting in seeing what they may do to break your board. Sometimes back then it wasn't really too hard, compared to now, where you just have to literally draw the outlay to draw a little more. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I see exactly where he's coming from. And also, he seems like a pretty nice, good fellow gentleman there.
Is that why you people play modern Yu-Gi-Oh? Just to end the game in 2 to 3 turns?
To win, yes.
I mean, what happened to feeling the suspense of 25 to 30 turns, potentially? Hell, the longest game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I had with Kyo, it was a stream, I think, last year, or I don't know which Yu-Gi-Oh! Stream we did. We went for 75 turns.
75 turns. We were playing Cook.
We had cards that restored our graveyard back to our deck.
Bro, we were playing Fiber Jar? Was Fiber Jar on this deck? I think the longest goal I've had was 61 turns, and I was playing Cook just to troll some people and rank them masterful. Just to be that guy. I just wanted to be that guy. And I had one bad day. I was like, I'm going to play Cook, and it was Cook Exodia, not Cook Final Countdown. It was Cook Exodia. And I wanted to, I had 61 turns. It took a while to get that Exodia, but I eventually won. And I regretted all my decisions because it was a question of, am I holding my opponent hostage or is he holding me hostage? But 75 turns is insane. I feel like the Fiber Jar shenanigans were going on here because I don't really know what format they were playing. I'm assuming definitely older format if Fiber Jar was legal. That's what I'm gathering here from the information we have in the video.
So we were able to keep going. We were able to keep to see who was going to overtake the other. And that's what made Yu-Gi-Oh! Feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! The anticipation, the unexpected nature of
There's
being
still
able
unexpectedness.
to be like, okay, my opponent did this, so I'm going to do this. And your opponent's like, you did this, I'm going to do this.
You still have that in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just not in terms of actual trap cards or spell cards. It's more of a line of hand traps. There's a lot of stuff that happens, especially if you're playing things. I'm going to go Max School as an example for this, just because of Maxi being in the game. There are plenty of times where if you're playing a deck, let's say Sorcels, for example, and you activate your emergence, your opponent changes that ash box to negate your emergence. You can call by the grave. So like you're not responding. So now your opponent is responding to your emergence for their ash box. Like, oh, you did actual emergence. I respond with ash box. I'm doing this. So you're like, well, you ashed me, so I'm going to chain call by the grave. So I will do this to your ash to negate your ash. Your opponent then IJ Max C. Haha! Take that, good sir. There's still that back and forth in terms of responses to what your opponent is doing, your opponent are doing. So, like, there's a lot less of it now in terms of the spelling trap cards, but there's still the same with the hand traps that we have in our decks. So that is still a thing in Yugioh, is that response time. Even then, we still have the interest of our monster effects on the field, and we still have spelling traps that can still do that, even if they're not in response to the summon of a monster. Say if you're playing Snake Eyes and you're going second, you can search out that subversion to potentially put a dangerous threat on your opponent's field to the spawn trapdoor zone to potentially snatch it with your Flambert's Dragon. So there's still a bunch of things you can actually do. And cards like Book of Moon, which are very reactive, are still played from time to time in different formats, and are still played in decks such as like Ninjas if you like flip things face down.
Nothing is going to be better than the GOAT format. Because at least back then...
Like, I respect your opinion on the GOAT format, but like I said, Edit format, in my opinion, is the superior format compared to GOAT. And for a lot of people could agree, but if you don't, you prefer GOAT, and your own personal opinion. I personally feel I want to give this guy the benefit of the doubt that he's tried Edit format. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he has tried Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And just chooses and just decides he doesn't like it. I want to believe that he didn't just what was it? The meme with the tier limit, the two professional players playing tier limit, and the car sprawled out trying to figure out the different chain links and stuff like that. I hope he just didn't see it then. Like, well, Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Fucking sucks. Look at this fucking garbage. Look at all this stuff. That's a mess. I really want to say he did try it. I hope he did, and actually gave it a good old college try before deciding he wasn't a fan of it. And that's fine. If you try and you don't like it, that's fine. It's not for everybody. And there's multiple ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That's one thing I love about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is even if you're not a big fan of, say, Modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, you can still play a lot older formats if you find people who are like-minded. You're going to be going on sites that the Dueling Book, I believe, has definitely alternate formats like Goat and Edison, to where you can play with those formats and compete against people who want to play in those specific formats and enjoy themselves. So, yeah, there's a lot of support out there, even to not Toonami, even Konami is starting to support things like Edison format and timers of formats and their major tournaments. Like MyCS, since you have side events for Edison, you can go play Edison stuff and play some of your favorite decks. And I think they're even doing some Gold formats as well. So, there is support from Konami, and they're not. I don't think they're going to be official tournaments, but nice fun side events where you can enjoy yourself with other like-minded people who want to play in those older formats. Definitely worth to check out if you are looking for that.
There was a level of fairness, and people are going to say, well, what about the people who say, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! Had issues back then? You're using the anime's rules, and most early Yu-Gi-Oh! Players would use the anime rules, not actual card game rules. By the time they got to Battle City, that's when rules were actually in effect. And I'm not talking about Duelist Kingdom, because I will admit there was some bullshit. But once you got to Battle City, Awakening of the Dragons, all that stuff, everything was set in stone of how the game should work and be played.
He's not wrong. A lot of us, when we start playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially with our friends, we played like with Duelist Kingdom rules, where we blue eyes for dragon from our hand. But the thing is, though, when people talk about how broken also Yu-Gi-Oh! Was, we're not talking about anime rules. Which, if you like the nice monsters, if you ever play Yu-Gi-Oh! With anime rules, go ahead and do it. It's quite fun and chaotic. But when we talk about how old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Was just as broken or potentially more broken than current Yu-Gi-Oh!, we're talking about a lot of the ridiculous decks out there like Yadalock, Magic Science FTK, the freaking Chaos decks, which could just nuke your entire board in hand, which is ridiculous. just we're talking about these type of formats, which weren't really fun and competitive because they were bullshit, especially Magic Science FTK, where if you were the opponent, you didn't get a turn. You did. We didn't have Effect Failure or Imperm, things like that. So, yeah, that's what was a lot of BS. Not anime rules. It was just a lot of the decks back in the day were really overpowered and really dumb, and probably wouldn't be too bad nowadays because we have a lot more ways to deal with them. But back in the day, they were not fair. They're not fair at all.
And all the way up into Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Even though GX ain't the best, the cards they introduced felt like they fit alongside the original GOAT format.
Not really. Cyber Dragon changed the game completely.
Playing stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh! On motorcycles, like 5Ds. All the 5Ds, synchros, pendulums, XYZs, even though I admit I use some XYZs and links, but I use the ones that are fair and don't basically give my opponent a heart attack and stress to not want to duel me ever again. That's what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is missing.
I ain't gonna lie. It sounds horrible, but I am waiting for somebody to just have a stress heart attack at some point in time. It's gonna happen. Someone's gonna be so stressed at a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament that they're gonna have a heart attack from stress. Guarantee it. And as horrible as it sounds, I'm waiting for it to happen because I know it's gonna happen. Because this game could be extremely stressful, even just playing online on Mastodon. It could be stressful. Man. Like, I can only imagine people going to YCS and stuff like that, how stressful that is. And oh, man, especially if you're on the nice win streak.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Lost its soul. In order for the card game to continue to
succeed, it's time to store souls.
Konami had to sacrifice the heart and soul of the game. And I doubt in the future that it's going to get any better.
Not really.
This game.
They are taking steps in the right direction, though. But TCG balanced.
It needs to be able to make older cards that people prefer to play with compete with the newer cards. Therefore,
people prefer to play with the older cards. That is very objective or subjective. I can't think of the term on top of my head right now. Because it's like 4 to 7 a.m. as I'm doing this. But a lot of us enjoy the older cards. Like I enjoy Bomb, Chapel, Moon, and I enjoy Mirror Force because Mirror Force is a very iconic card and hilarious. When people had walked into it back in the day, you kind of felt like Yugi Moto, like you've activated my trap card, Mirror Force. Stuff like that was really cool back in the day. But again, like I said, with the edited format and stuff like that, you can still play with these older cards and these older formats. You just gotta find people who want to do it. And not hard. There's Facebook groups, there's all kinds of Discord groups, Discord servers that have this. So, like, I recommend trying to find those things because it's not hard. And, I enjoy editing. I'm definitely planning on doing some editing content on the channel at some point in time when I'm able to actually kind of start recording a little more consistently for the channel because I have to be consistent. But that is one thing I want to bring to the channel is good old-fashioned edited format because I enjoy the format a lot and it's just a lot of fun. So, let's try to finish this video and do some final thoughts.
Where it keeps a level of equality and fairness among the community. Because right now, you could tell the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community is split between people who just like the instant win stuff and feel that that's the dominant way to play and forgot how it truly was.
There's a split. Nah, I'm not gonna lie.
And I was, around the time of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! I grew up with the original Yu-Gi-Oh! And
same.
And that was a much simpler time. But the thing about it is, there was nothing wrong with it.
Things are simple for kids.
There was nothing wrong with being able to just say, I'm going to make a deck of 40 to 45 random cards, and my opponent makes a deck of random to 40 to 45 cards.
You can still do that.
Who's the better, may the better man win.
You can still do that.
I don't know why that concept was lost to people or lost to the game itself. But the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Series has suffered from it. I mean, the newer animes, they blow. They fucking suck. Nothing beats the GOAT format. And if they could just be able to have the old format compete with the new format, then maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Could be what it once was. But for right now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is barely on life support because of what it has.
It's still in the big three, so it's not
which
real life
is the
support.
ridiculous power creep and the unrealistic way people use their cards. I mean, a card with 6 effects could just ruin the whole duel. Anyway, this is Emperor John Kill 3D Gaming. Be sure to like, subscribe.
Okay. So, we're going to skip the plugs that this man's going to have. But, to kind of recap and kind of talk about some things. One, Archetypes did not kill Yugioh. There was less creativity, even back in the day. He really just talks about the power creep, which yes, power creep is ridiculous, but it's really unavoidable in pretty much any type of competitive game because you're going to have some type of power creep in some way, shape, or form. That is inevitable. Like, you're freaking Thanos. It's inevitable. You keep talking about how the format is pure, but you're wrong. It is editing formats. Get it right. I'm going to start a flame war in my comments. If people watch this, I already know this thing, but editing format and players. But, and all in all, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Has its issues. It definitely does. But I wouldn't say it completely sucks. We all have our quarrels in it, and we all have our issues with it, but that's just how it is in general with Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. But, yeah, overall, it was a nice little video. I enjoyed it a lot, and, you know, it's kind of, it's always interesting to see, how people think of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! From the eyes of a definitely more casual player, somebody who just hasn't really played the game in quite some time. But, yeah, definitely. It was definitely a big, nice little video, and, I wouldn't mind reacting to part 2. If you want to see part 2, definitely put it in the comment section below because he does put part 2 in, I think, part 3. Part 2, I thought was like halfway through of it. But I would say one major issue I do have with this video is the fact that you don't really show any issues with modern. You talk about the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Issues, but you don't really show anything. It'd be really cool to see some gameplay of maybe you getting carb stomped by like a meta deck. Because like a year ago. So I would say if you went on Master Duel, probably tier limits or something like that. Not in tier limits, like maybe like Frankies or like Herald or something like you just getting curb stomped by like Sorcerer or something like that. Just a really powerful deck that is you find to be really unfair. I think that will kind of help cement your point a little bit more in terms of just you saying what is unfair and what isn't unfair. That this sucks and that sucks. So like the hand traps and things like that. So, give a thumbs up in the comment section below on this guy's video. If I make any mistakes, feel free to say so in the comment section below. I'll be free to correct them because that is my bad there. I'm all here for criticism. And dude, again, if you are somehow watch this video, feel free to hit me up. If you want to play some Go format or any of the old school stuff or do that error split thing, that would be kind of cool. And I would love to collab with that, even though I only have 16 subs here, 1.5K. Hope you enjoyed my content. Feel free to subscribe and like the video. It does help out a lot, and I would like to definitely try to upload as much content as I possibly can this year. So, anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.